to be here with you today on August 4th, 2021, because this is the day that I've long awaited to start discussing the printed version of Rolling Realms with you. This is a game that I started working on early on in the days of the pandemic when I was hoping to find an infinitely scaling roll and write game that I could use to connect with people all around the world as we were going through that self-isolation period of the early days of the pandemic. And that's continued, but it was a big thing then. It was very new then. And so this is a game. This game came out of that initial idea, and there's live playtests with people like you on Facebook Live sessions like this. If you're new to these Facebook Live sessions, because today is our e-newsletter day, I put the link in the description over here. I'm here to answer any questions that you have, as long as they're not spoiler questions. I don't answer spoiler questions. I discuss some random topics, and today in particular, I will discuss the e-newsletter, the Stonemaier Games e-newsletter that I just sent out, which is on my other screen over here. I will point over here as if I'm pointing at something you can see, but that is my second screen with the e-newsletter there. And I will be coming back and talking about Rolling Realms throughout this video a couple different times in a couple different ways. Chad says, what's rolling in today? Rolling Realms is rolling in today. Well said. I see some excitement about Rolling Realms in the comments here. And yeah, so I'll probably say this a few times in the video for people who chime in at different times. But Rolling Realms, we decided to make this a 1 to 6 player game, even though it can scale infinitely. We chose that for reasons I'll discuss in detail in a design diary. But the core idea is we wanted to have an affordable game. This is a smaller box game. I don't know if you can tell the size, yeah, relative to my head. This is a smaller box game, 1 to 6 players, and you can buy multiple copies if you want and save on shipping. And to have a bigger group game, you can. And one thing I'll be doing, I'll be doing live plays of this once we actually ship this later in September. Because we can now play with anyone around the world who has a copy. So yeah, this is what the box looks like. You can kind of see on the box that we ended up making 22,000 copies in the first print run. They will all be individually numbered out of the box. And yeah, that is a little bit about Rolling Realms. I'll come back in a second and talk about one other element of the game that I'm going to reveal today. And I'll be revealing the different realms, what the final realms look like and how they work in each of the upcoming design diary posts that I'll post in the Rolling Realms Facebook group and on the Stonemaier Games Facebook page, or on the Stonemaier Games website, not the Facebook page. So I'll discuss those elements. I'll talk about the solo play, which is not something that was originally in the game. That was something that Morton and Team Automa added. Really excited about that. Let me see if Nuno commented on the chair and how Biddy is very much enjoying my desk chair while I'm on camera today. Cameron says, do we get to see the dice? Yes, I'll be showing the dice in Rolling Realms in a few minutes. There is a photo in the Rolling Realms Facebook group, but I'm going to show you a few different versions of the dice. I'll show you the evolution of what the dice started out with and what they ended up being. I see designer Francesco joining us today as well. That's awesome. Rick, I'm sorry to hear that your manufacturer in China got hit with a flood. I hope everyone at the manufacturer is okay, and I hope your game is okay when they're able to get back to it and focus on that. Let's see. Carol says she saw in my new e-newsletter that I finally tried Dwellings of Eldervale. Yes, I've actually played 2 games that have been on my list for a while, 2 big kind of epic games. One was Nemesis, which I played last week and did a video on yesterday, and the other was Dwellings of Eldervale, which I played at game night last week and will do a video about on this Friday. I'm probably going to play it at game night tonight as well. Both were very epic, memorable experiences, very different games, Nemesis and Dwellings, but I was really excited and really happy to get both to the table. I enjoyed them both for very different reasons. Carol says, what faction did you play? I played the Goblins. I played the Goblin faction, and yes, I really did enjoy the game. Very much my style of Euro game, but it has some fun interactions, some fun combat in it as well. Some other games that I played over the last week, I played Go Nuts for Donuts and Viticulture on Board Game Arena last week. Viticulture is now fully available on Board Game Arena. I think you have to be a paid subscriber to do it, but it's only $4 a month. I would say that's a fantastic deal to get on Board Game Arena. Those two games were fun to play at game night last week, virtual game night. I also played Bonanza and what was the other game that we played? Mysterium Park at a small game night and dinner that we had with friends over this past weekend. And we also had delicious, actually, I want to mention the food. We had the really delicious pizza from Elmwood here in St. Louis. I would say it's up there with Union Loafers and Dewey's as some of the best pizza that I've had in St. Louis. And Pizzeria Tivoli. Those are probably my top 4 now. But really good pizza from Elmwood in St. Louis. I need to add that to my food list. Chad says, congrats on the ace. Thank you for saying that, Chad. Yeah, so I guess long story short, I had my first disc golf ace a couple days ago on Sunday morning when I was disc golfing a quick round at Watson Trail Park here in St. Louis with Megan, and it felt incredible. I did not expect this shot or any shot that I have to actually hit the basket on the drive, and it did. I'm still kind of baffled that it happened. Although at the same time, it was one of those shots that did exactly what I wanted to do. I've been working on this one shot, and it left my hand in the right way, and it just the the disconnect between what my brain is used to with these drives, because every other drive I've ever thrown has hit the ground or hit a tree and then hit the ground. But for it to just go in the basket is just baffling and amazing to me. I posted some photos on Instagram. We don't have it on video. We don't have the actual shot on video. But I have some photos of how happy I look before and after the shot. Yeah, it was incredible. Thank you for mentioning that, Chad. Tim is joining us from Scotland. Tim's working on Tim actually made the scoring app for Red Rising, and he's working on the digital version of Tapestry. Good to have you here, Tim. Kevin says, can you just print more copies to play with a larger group? Can you just print more copies to play with? So Kevin, I think you're referring to the print and play version of Rolling Realms, which is still available. You can get that on our website, but it is outdated. And I don't plan on updating it because at this point, I think we've priced the actual game very reasonably, and I want people to buy the game that we worked so hard on in producing. So it is still possible to play whatever the final version of Rolling Realms was that I made available for print to play last year, but there's more stuff in the box that isn't there. The art, we actually have art in this version of it, and there's some other elements to it, some new elements, some changes, some mechanical changes, some balancing things that you won't find in the printed version. So if you want to play Rolling Realms with more people, you will need to buy copies of it. But again, I'm not going to reveal the price today, but I think we priced it in a really, really reasonable way for people to buy more than one copy if they want. But also, I mean, I think it's pretty rare that any of us play games with more than 6 people. So that's why we picked that number. Jesse says, are you still collecting stats for plays of Tapestry? If yes, how often do you look at them, and when do you know it's time to make a change to balance things out? Yes, we definitely do. Yeah, you can go to the Tapestry page on our website and share the stats from any game that you play. We still love when people report their stats. We look at them, and I say we because it's me and the data analyst, a data analysis expert, Jeremy, that looks at them. And we look at them probably twice a year. We take a look and see how those stats are coming through. And whenever we're working on an expansion, that's a good excuse for us to take a detailed look at those stats and consider if we need to make any adjustments. So the next time we look at it will probably be a month or so after the expansion comes out. We'll look at those stats to see if we missed anything. We do have some small adjustments coming in conjunction with that expansion, although I think I actually may have already made them. So they might actually already be on the website. Yeah. Some great questions. I'll keep going with questions for a little bit, and then I'll actually no. Let me pause real quick, Justin. I see your question. In case Facebook scrolls past it, I'll come back to it in a second. But let me see if there's anything that I really want to cover from the e-newsletter before I forget. So Rolling Realms. Let's talk about Rolling Realms for another second. So a major story of this game is figuring out which dice. So Rolling Realms is a game where one player rolls some dice. It doesn't matter which player. All players are going to use the same 2 dice, and all players use one of those dice. They write down the number from one of those dice in one of their realms. They have 3 different realms, and they choose another die, and they write down that number in another one of their realms, a different realm. So the dice are crucial. The game needs 2 dice. It needs exactly 2 dice, no more, no less. And I figured, this is the main component of the game. Rolling Realms doesn't have a lot of room for like a component hook, a big special component. And so I thought, okay, let's just make the biggest dice that we can. And we came up with these dice. So here's a regular D6 here for reference, and I'll hold up this die. So this, I believe, is a 40 or 50, I think it's 40 millimeter die here. You can see how big it is. This is a resin die. So I wanted something big and chunky here. It is super heavy, super big. And as it turns out, it is too big and too heavy. This die will almost dent a table when you roll it, and it doesn't roll all that well because it's so heavy. It's a nice big thing to hold in your hand. Although with both of them, you can barely even hold them both in your hand. It is that big. And so after I realized this, I was like, okay, we probably need to make them a little bit smaller. And so we changed some things. We rounded the edges. Here, I'll show you the next iteration. So we rounded the edges of the dice. We made them smaller. Here's the die for comparison, made them smaller. But they were still resin. And I realized after this that resin was the problem here. It wasn't the rounded edges. It's the resin that's so heavy. if you've held resin miniatures, they feel really nice, but you're not rolling those miniatures and you are rolling dice. And so this was just too heavy. And so we instead went with plastic dice, acrylic dice, and but I still wanted to make. At that point, I was like, okay, if we're just going with plastic, which in this case, I think, for a usability perspective, and how it feels was the better way to go. But I wanted to do something special, and so we ended up marbling the dice. So we have a beautiful, or at least I think it's beautiful. Don't want to tell you what to think, but yeah, I think we chose these greens and blues that marble together, and we chose hexes for the pips because they are standard D6 dice. But we marbled this together, and this is the result. These are 25 millimeter dice. You can see them in comparison to the original giant dice that we have, but they're still really nice and big. You can see how big they are in my hand here, and they feel great. I'm really happy with how they turned out. But I wanted to share that story with you. I'll probably post some photos in the design diary sharing that story because it was I don't know, receiving these dice. And I was so excited to see them. And then when I rolled them, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm going to damage my table with these dice. And these just roll so much better. They bounce around. They feel great. All right, shoot. Okay, Facebook did scroll past the question. Justin, can you repeat your question? I saw it was about a D&D campaign, I think. I scrolled past it. Andrew said, oh, no, okay. Facebook's scrolling a little bit. I'm going to have to miss some questions. I think Andrew had a question about Jakob's 1920 plus world. Yes, I would still love to create a new game in that world. I missed Richard's question. Tyler says, will there be a Stonemaier Games custom disc for disc golf? We're considering it. Yeah, it would be a fun little thing to make, maybe an April Fool's thing to make. Cameron says, am I going to give away the dice that we had previously? No, I think I'll keep these. I only have one copy of them. Howard says he just played Feudum. I've only played Feudum once. It was a long time ago, and it was a learning game, so it was a lot to grok for me. I haven't returned to it since, but I love the art design. The designer's a very, very nice guy, a local guy here in St. Louis. Karen asked how Biddy and Walter are. Well, you can see Biddy here. Biddy's taking a wonderful nap in the chair here, and Walter's been a little feisty today, but they're doing well. They're doing well. Thanks for asking about that. Kovray says, who are the artists for Rolling Realms? Yes, you can see them on the box here. They are, well, no, you can't really see them on the box. They're Miles Bensky, who helped out with the art for Red Rising, and Marius Petrescu. So Miles did the art for the box, and Marius did the art for each of the realms. Danny asked about the reveals of the contents of the box, and the dice are the contents that I will reveal today. But you can see in the photo I posted on Instagram and our website and on the Facebook group a big stack of cards, because there's a big stack of cards in the game, and hints at the dry erase markers that are in the game as well. So I think it's maybe obvious from those photos that we are using dry erase cards and markers. I'm sorry, I have something in my eye here. Dry erase cards and markers instead of like a score pad style thing where you're using sheets of paper every time you play. Let's see. Nazia says, what's the longest game that you've ever played, and how long did it take from start to finish? I think it was probably Game of Thrones, which was around 5 hours. Twilight Imperium was also around 5 hours. There are a few games in that 5 hour time span. I think those are the two. Eclipse was also 5 hours. Karen has a nice comment about us replacing her tapestry tray. I'm glad to hear that, Karen. I will say, I probably shouldn't have said that out loud, because I generally do not want to replace trays if we can help it. We're here to do it if it gets damaged. But, it's not the most efficient thing to ship across the world, especially when it's not really a necessary component of the game. But, Karen, I'm glad we were able to offer you that customer service in this special situation. But I don't want to encourage that in general for people. It's kind of... the environmental impact of shipping plastic around the world does add up quite a bit. Dusty says he loves those frost and resin dice. Does anyone know where I can get a copy like those? They're not. Yeah, we actually did. You're clever to observe that frosted element. I saw that in the new version of King of Tokyo, whatever the name of it is, the dark version or something like that. And I was like, I want to try that. So that's another element of these dice that I wanted to try. I would not recommend getting them in resin, though. I would recommend getting them in acrylic if you can find a place to get them. Thomas says he's excited for Rolling Realms. Do you have any news for the Tapestry expansion? No, of course not. Today we're talking about Rolling Realms, not Tapestry. But I do look forward to talking about the Tapestry expansion later this year. Today is all about Rolling Realms, though. Dusty says, would I hold the standard dice next to the production dice? Standard. So here's a standard D6. This is 16 millimeters, and this is 25 millimeters. So you can see what that looks like there. Yeah. Steven says, speaking of the dice, would you classify them as weird stuff? Hoping I might get your design when that Kickstarter is fulfilled soon. Weird stuff and that Kickstarter. Um, I don't know what that is, Stephen. I don't know what the weird stuff is or the Kickstarter. And any designs, I will say, any designs that we have are proprietary, so it won't be something that we won't be sharing the layout of this. Although anyone I think could pretty easily make a die like this using hexes as pips. I'm sure that we are not the first to do that. Let's see. Okay, Chris asked about my cats and my dad. The cats are doing well, and my dad, I talked to him a couple days ago. He's doing pretty well. We had a good chat over the weekend. Yeah, he was drinking an avocado smoothie when I called him a couple days ago. What else is going on? Let me look over the newsletter a little bit, and I'll come back. Sorry, I know I missed some questions there. Justin, I know I missed your question and a few others. Here we go. Justin, you caught up with me. There you go. He says he's been DMing a campaign in D&D and have a major dragon encounter coming up. I was curious if you can provide some advice on how to create a lot of tension for his players, either using your RPG or game design knowledge. I have no knowledge about RPGs at all. I have to say that. It's been a long time since I played an RPG, and it was very limited. It was a Star Wars RPG when I was like 13. Major dragon encounter. I'll say this. I mean, tension is a good question. I would say tension is give players multiple good choices that they can make, where the right answer isn't clear. I think that can really help. And one of the things that I love about games where there is an encounter element to like this is where the answer isn't always just fight the dragon, fight the monster, where there are other options as well. That might be a little bit harder even, but might be more interesting. Or if it is the type of thing where this is just purely an evil dragon and the only option that you want to get players is to fight the dragon, that you give players interesting decisions within that. That requires some sacrifices. I'm sure you've done this in D&D. I'm sure there's, you can shoot an arrow at the dragon, but you have a much smaller chance of actually doing damage versus going up and having some melee combat. But where melee combat, you have a greater chance of getting hurt. So those are the types of tension-filled, tough decisions that I like to see games give players. Yeah, thanks for repeating that question. I appreciate that. If I missed anyone else's question, because Facebook scrolls past them, please let me know. Here, Rich caught up as well. Thank you, Rich. He says Rich designed his own game during COVID and want to see it come to life. What do you recommend as next steps, Kickstarter or pitch to publishers? That is a big question for you to answer, really, Rich. Do you want to run your own business or do you want to just be a game designer? And I say just as not a derogatory thing in any way. It's what you want to focus on. Do you enjoy the game design process specifically, and you don't enjoy running a business around the game, or vice versa? For me, I enjoy both. I enjoy designing games, but I also really enjoy running my business, and so that's why I originally launched a Kickstarter and started a business around viticulture and then other games in the future. So I think that's the key point there. I also have I almost said a great video. I have a video about how to design a board game. If you go to the website, Stonemaier Games website, and look up, it's under Kickstarter on the website, but it's Kickstarter. It's the next thing down under Kickstarter. It says how to design a tabletop game. There are lots of resources that I collected there, including a video that goes through the various steps of the design process, just to make sure you're kind of checking all those boxes. Michelle says she finally got Between Two Castles to the table and enjoyed it. I'm glad to hear that, Michelle. Thanks for playing it. I actually played a Stonemaier game myself recently. I finished our Charterstone campaign. And we had a lot of fun. We each brought a dish. Many of us brought two dishes to the table for a grand Charterstone lunch for games 11 and 12, dishes inspired by our charter. And I made chocolate chip cookies that were very loosely thematically connected. And I also made smashed potatoes, kind of Cajun smashed potatoes, which were also related to a specific building in my charter. Jeremy says, does the box serve as a dice tray for rolling those awesome dice? You can, yeah, I don't think we even say that in the rule, but you can certainly use the box to roll dice, or you can just roll them on the table. Either way works, yeah. Let's see. Tim has a very nice comment about the Bard Chronicles. Yeah, one of the Kickstarter campaigns that I talked about a few months ago was a campaign called the Bard Chronicles. It's a guy who's trying to make a rap album about RPGs, about D&D campaigns. And I was just amazed by what he created. He had a sample of the music as the project video. If he didn't back it, I would still recommend going to watch it. Look up The Bard Chronicles on Kickstarter and watch that video. And recently, he had a really terrible thing happen where his hard drive on his computer crashed, and he posted about it and how he was trying to have a friend recover it, but he might have to go to a recovery service, an expensive recovery service. And my heart went out to him when I saw this, and I offered for Stonemaier Games to pay for the recovery process because it can be pretty expensive. And I want this thing to be made. I believe in what he's making. And so yeah, I just commented and offered that, and we'll see if it's necessary. But it looks like at this point that his friend is not going to be able to recover that data, and so we're gonna pay for the recovery, and we're gonna pay for him to have a backup service so that he doesn't have to worry about losing his hard drive in the future. Just one creator helping another. I'm sure anyone would have done something like this, and we happen to have the resources to do so. Yeah. Carl says, I really enjoyed playing this game with friends during the pandemic. Did you ever try the remote version of Isle of Cats? I think Carl's referring to Rolling Realms, and Isle of Cats is also a great game. I never actually did play the remote version of it. I have the tabletop version of Isle of Cats, and so Megan and I did play it several times during the pandemic. I love the game. Giovanni says, will there be a discounted price for Rolling Realms when it first comes out, like Red Rising? Or you're not doing pre-order sales anymore? It depends on the product. That's a good question. Because of our champion program, if the product is really low priced already, as is Rolling Realms, we don't typically offer pre-order discounts on the games because you can just be a champion and get a discount that way. So as the price for the product goes up, we have more wiggle room really to offer a pre-order discount. So for Rolling Realms, it is priced so inexpensively that no, there won't be a pre-order discount other than the champion discount. But we are subsidizing shipping, and so we're hoping to keep those shipping prices low for anyone who wants to buy 1 or 2 copies of the game. Yeah. Tony said, am I going to show the back of the box? No, I've learned my lesson. No, I just take the box top off. I don't show the back of the box here on these videos. I know people end up screenshotting that. Learn that lesson with Tapestry. Oh, Steven's referring to the Mystery Dice Kickstarter. Okay, yes. Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned that because John who ran the Mystery Dice Kickstarter, John is aware of Rolling Realms, and he was aware of the print-to-play version, and then aware that we were making a final version of it. And he is making special, even probably nicer dice than this, because John is amazing at making special dice. He is making special dice for Rolling Realms as part of that campaign, which I think you will get like randomly in the campaign. I can't remember exactly how the campaign was structured, but John is making special dice for Rolling Realms as well. So if you want 2 sets of special dice for Rolling Realms, you can get them through maybe the Mystery Dice campaign. It's not live anymore, but maybe you can still get in on the campaign after the fact. Yeah, so people are clarifying that. Thank you for. I forgot that it was labeled under the weird stuff category, but I do. Yeah, the Mystery Dice. Yeah, that definitely jogged my memory. Chad says, do you use a millimeter tool at home to measure components? If so, what kind of cool tool do you use? Yes, Panda was actually very kind to send me a gift one year. This is the type of gift that designers like to get and publishers like to get. They sent me I think it's called a caliper. You call it caliper here. It is an electronic caliper that measures very precisely the size in millimeters that anything is. I don't have it handy. It's in my closet of secrets back there, but it is a really, really cool device to see how precise it can get in terms of measurements. Cameron asked, are you a fan of Avatar, the cartoon? He says the new licensed RPG is doing amazingly well on Kickstarter right now. I am. Yeah, actually, maybe that's a good excuse for me to get into an RPG. I will check that out. Thank you, Cameron. Because I loved Avatar. I loved it way more than I really thought because I don't watch many cartoons. I am looking forward to Marvel's What If next week, though, so that'll get me into cartoons. But I will check that out. I loved Avatar. I love Korra even more. I love them both so much. I highly recommend if you like, I don't know, interesting magic systems and evolving worlds, evolving characters. Just so well done. Let me jump back over to my e-newsletter real quick on my second screen here. Some of the other things I mentioned here are signed cards. So yeah, I recently assigned a bunch of cards from our games, and they are now an add-on item on our web store. So if there's something that you want from our web store, whether it's now or you want to wait for the Rolling Realms pre-order, you can add on a signed card, a random signed card. The logistics of selecting specific cards for people or specific cards from specific games is not possible with a fulfillment process, but you can add a random signed card to your order on the Stonemaier Games web store, and it'll ship from our regional fulfillment centers in the US, Australia, the UK, and Canada. And what else to know about that? Oh, and also, if you get a card that you don't want, and maybe you were hoping for a tapestry card and you got a scythe card, then you can post in the corresponding Facebook group and say, hey, I got this card. Does anyone want to trade me for a card that you got that maybe you don't want? Yeah. As noted on the website, please only put one in your order because we want to make sure there's enough for everyone who wants them. Yeah. I also ask in our e-newsletter, as I do maybe once a year, hopefully not in an annoying way, but if you haven't rated our games on Board Game Geek, games that you've actually played, feel free to do so. Or this is a good chance to update your ratings. Maybe you like a game more than you originally played it. Maybe you like it less than you originally played it. But having those ratings is super, super helpful for Board Game Geek to show people how people think about our games as they make buying decisions about them. So I really appreciate anyone who's willing to do that. If you're not into it, I'm totally fine with that too. I mentioned some digital game news. Wingspan is now on iOS. So that was I think I mentioned that a few weeks ago, but that happened on July 20th. It's now available on iOS, Wingspan Digital. Viticulture, as I said, is on Board Game Arena. Secrets to Soirees, the expansion to Between Two Castles, is now on Tabletopia. And Between Two Cities is now available on iOS, Android, and Steam. That's a new one, Between Two Cities. That kind of crept up on me. The developer was working behind the scenes on that one. I almost forgot that they were working on it. But yeah, Between Two Cities is now available in a full AI digital version. And that, I think, is all the big news from the e-newsletter, other than, of course, that we're announcing Rolling Realms, and I will be doing design diaries over the next few weeks, culminating in the teaser trailer, as usual, culminating in Rodney Smith's Watch It Played video about how to play the game, and previews from people who have advanced review copies, and then reviews. The only thing that's a little odd, I think, about this particular situation with Rolling Realms is usually I do a pre-order, I do an announcement like this where I start to talk about the game, and then at the beginning of the next month, we do the pre-order, and then we start shipping right away after that. However, freight shipping is kind of crazy right now. Rolling Realms finished production maybe 3 months ago, at least 2 months ago, but it didn't actually get on the ship until about a week ago because China is so backed up in terms of shipping things out of China. And so we don't really exactly know when the ship is going to arrive, and we don't want to run the pre-order until we are very confident that the games are very close to arriving or have already arrived at each of our fulfillment centers. So we're just looking out for you there. We don't want you to give us your money and then have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks to get your product. We want to be able to start to ship it right away, if not within at most a week or two of you pre-ordering and paying for it. So that is why we don't have a definite date for the pre-order yet, but you can sign up for a pre-order notification, pre-order launch notification on our website. And if you do, I think this is something that we did for Red Rising. If you do, we are going to donate $1 for every person who signs up for a pre-order launch notification. You don't have to spend anything. All you have to do is put your email in there, and you'll get a single email at a certain point saying, "Hey, we're ready for you to pre-order the game." And we will donate $1 to the International Tree Foundation, which helps to restore woodlands, conserve habitats, and helps communities that rely heavily on forests. So we're trying to do our part in, we use trees to make the cardboard and wood components of our games, and we want to ensure that those trees are being replanted in some way. And we thought this was a great organization to do that. So go to our website. If you haven't done this already, even if you get our general e-newsletter, it does not hurt to do this. You'll get a single notification just when we launch the pre-order for Rolling Realms, and we will donate $1 of our money, not your money, of our money, to the International Tree Foundation. Yeah. It's Kim's birthday. Kim says she played her first 2 games of Charterstone last night and loved it so far. And most importantly, it is Kim's birthday. Well, happy birthday, Kim. That's wonderful. I hope you have a fun day today, filled with some of your favorite things. Chad says, can you repeat the spiel about Rolling Realms for those of us who missed the first few minutes? He says, I love playing the PNP during all the live tests, and I'm very much anticipating the published version. Yeah, the short version of it is that Rolling Realms is an infinitely scaling game, roll and write game, where one player, any player, rolls 2 dice, and all players use those numbers, one number to place in one of their realms. You have these little mini game realms, and you use the other die to write down in one of your other realms. Same concept as in the print and play version. I haven't talked about exactly what's in the box yet, but you can kind of see from photos that we are using dry erase cards in the final version of the game instead of one-use sheets in the game. The game comes with two big 25 millimeter dice. You can see the box is a pretty small box around the size of the Tapestry expansion box, the first Tapestry expansion. And and yeah, plays 1 to 6 players out of the box, but you can get more copies if you want. I will be doing live plays once people actually get this version of it. I will be doing some live plays of it so we can continue to play this game around the world and connect with each other in these times of continued self-isolation with the Delta variant. Yeah, so that's the general spiel that I've said about the game so far, and I'll be revealing the final versions of each of the realms in upcoming design diaries. Let's see. Juice says, is the marbling slightly different in every die or the same in all of them? I think with marbling, I don't think you can do identical marbling. So I believe each die is slightly unique in terms of the marbling. Same colors, though, are mixed together. Stephen also mentioned the Bard Chronicles. Yeah, yeah, thank you guys for saying that. It felt right to me to help another creator who was going through a tough thing. I think we've all had something crash, something technological crash at some point in our lives, right? Our computer, our phone, something like that, where we lost data, and it feels so dreadful. And I'm glad there are recovery services out there that can help. Dizzy, I think is his name, at the Bard Chronicles. And yeah, I'm a creator. I'm here to help a fellow creator like that with his passion project. Let's see. A lot of people are giving advice to Justin about his D&D campaign. So this is some great advice. I'm not going to repeat it all, but Justin, hopefully you're getting some great advice here. Tim says, am I interested in Alien Fate of the Nostromo? I've heard some call it Nemesis Light. Maybe I need to check that out. No, I haven't checked out that game at this point. No, but thank you for recommending it. And I wanted to mention in that respect that yesterday was a huge day for Kickstarter. Do you all see these games that were launched on Kickstarter? Actually, a surprisingly number of similar games or games in the same realm of games, including maybe it's just similar games happening right now. So there was Green Hell, the board game, which is struggling a little bit to fun. We'll see if it makes it, but it looks like a really beautifully produced game, just maybe launched on the wrong day because it launched alongside Iridia, The Paths We Dare Tread. So this is by the creator of Zaya, which currently, let's see, I'm showing 74% funding. Let's see if it's going up. Yeah, still 74% funding. He had one of the biggest funding goals I've ever seen, but I appreciate the transparency. We went for the real goal of what he needed to raise to make this game. And it looks beautiful. It looks like he put together something really beautiful. And there's some really cool systems in there. Actually, if you love RPGs, I liked what he did with a storytelling element in this game that includes an actual mechanism. It's like you can get storytelling points if you're able to steer players towards a certain thing as you're storytelling. I also really like the combat dice in the game. It looks really neat how you roll this combat die that shows exactly where an enemy is going to hit you, and that impacts a certain part of this polyomino grid on your player map. Did some really cool stuff with it. I am really excited about it. I'm not as excited to pay $165. That's more than I've ever spent on a Kickstarter game. So I'm not quite sure if I will back it yet, especially since I'm currently in for $80 on the Earthborn Rangers campaign, which is also an open world RPG-ish game. It's not RPG, but it's an open world cooperative game. So I'm really excited about Earthborn Rangers too. And Soul Raiders. I'm also, back in Soul Raiders, which looks awesome. And then on GameFound over here, there's also a pretty epic game in Legend Academy that launched yesterday, and Lands of Galzir launched yesterday, which is another big epic kind of open world game. All these really impressive open world campaign games coming out, and my hesitation. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't think Legend Academy is a campaign game, but I'll check on that. But a lot of campaign games, I interesting timing, I think, with all these because I think it is a little tough to. I think when people are faced with multiple similar games that are campaign games at the same time, people might be inclined to just choose one because you get that campaign overload. If I have 40 hours of game in this one game, how am I going to get one of these other games to the table? This is my perspective on it. But overall, I was amazed by the quality and the appeal of the games that launched yesterday on Kickstarter. They just happened to all launch on the same day, which I think could be tricky for a bunch of them. Legend Academy and Lands of Galzir, not Legends, are on GameFound, and then Earthborn Rangers, which launched last week, as well as Soul Raiders launched a week or so ago. But yesterday was Green Hell and Iridia on Kickstarter. And even more, too. Tuesday is just a big day for Kickstarter these days. Derek says, I feel like I should make a sign that says Jamie's Cabinet of Secrets for the cabinet behind me. Yeah, I should do that if I can make a nice sign for that. Yeah. Karen says, "What did I think of Nemesis?" She says, it's on my radar at the moment, but I fear that it may be a little heavy, too heavy for me. The components look nice though. You can see my video about it. You can check out my YouTube video about my favorite mechanisms in it yesterday. It went live yesterday. I really enjoyed the emergent narrative of the game. And this is one thing that I'll note about it. It's a complex game. It took me a while to learn. I was responsible for learning and teaching the game. It took me over 2 hours to watch a video and read through the rule books. However, every single rule in that rule book is thematically explained and leads to that emergent narrative. It's there for a reason. It's not just there for complexity's sake. It's not just there for the designer to show off. It's there for a reason. And so while it is a complex game, if you have a good teacher, and I say that not knowing anything about Karen, how you learn or teach games, I just know for me, spending 2 hours to teach a game and then 4 hours to play a game was a lot. It would have been nice to maybe ask someone else to learn that game and teach it. But Joe does that a lot for us. Like part of Joe's job is to learn and teach games, and this was one that I figured I'll take this one on. I'll do this one. But if you go to a convention or something and have someone who loves the game and wants to teach it, I think that is probably the best way to get into Nemesis rather than learning the rules yourself or myself. I know that from my experience. Yeah. But it was nice to know that all those little rules that I learned went into providing a really, really awesome experience. Yeah. Tim says he'd love to have a bird watching walk with wingspan cards in his area. That's so neat. So Tim is referring to something that we did with a local St. Louis group. I believe, what is it? Gateway Greenway, something like that. They're a local group where one of the things they do is do bird watching tours. And a few months ago, they reached out to us and we kind of found a collaboration where we gave them a bunch of wingspan cards. And whenever someone on these bird watching tours spots a bird, they get that card. So they win that wingspan card that matches that bird. Just a fun little thing. And I'm hoping we have some opportunities to serve other communities that have bird watching tours like this, because it's just kind of a fun thing to do. And it was surprising to see how many of the birds among the 180 cards in Wingspan, how many of the birds they actually were able to find just here locally in St. Louis. Yeah. Patrick says, as far as deciding where to submit your game or run a Kickstarter, one consideration might be how much art is required. He says, I tend to make cards with a lot of unique art. I download it and paste it to my cards or game board, so I can't use it commercially. If you're like me at all, you would probably need to either deal with lots of artists or let the board game pros do that. Yeah, that's another part of running the business. When you're running a Kickstarter for a game, you are a publisher, you are running a business, and part of that means you are responsible for art direction, graphic design, and art. Usually that means you're going out and hiring a graphic designer and hiring one or more artists. But there's a significant expense and there's a lot of project management time for that art direction and project management. Yeah. Chris says he had fun doing a Wingspan crossover play on digital. I'm glad that worked out well. It's great. I mean, they've built a great platform at Monster Couch for Wingspan Digital. Chad says that he said, I was happy to get a signature in person a couple of Gen Cons ago when you signed my side combat wheel. Good times. Yeah. Whenever I'm at a convention, I'm happy to sign stuff. That's an easy time to sign stuff. And the next opportunity for that will be at the Geekway to the West here in St. Louis. That's Geekway to the West, a convention happening, I believe, on October 6th here in St. Louis. George says, is that the new Stonemaier Games ambassador t-shirt you are wearing? The contrast between the orange and black logo is looking great. Yeah, it's kind of a gray logo. It's a blend printing, so it feels really nice. Like it doesn't rub off at all. And this isn't the new one. This is just the one that we've printed a few times over the last maybe year. But yeah, if you ordered one recently as a Stonemaier ambassador, this is the shirt that you'll get. Chris says, with Rolling Realms, will we see playthroughs again like you conducted back in 2020? Yes. Yeah, I'm really hoping that after we get this to people later in September, early October, I will definitely be doing some live plays, mostly and maybe even only in the actual Rolling Realms Facebook group. So if you want to play along with me, join the Rolling Realms Facebook group, and I will still probably upload those videos to YouTube afterwards. So because you don't actually have to play live, you can play on your own time at your own speed if you want. On YouTube after the fact, or even on Facebook Live. You can do that too, but I think YouTube's a little bit easier for speeding up videos and watching them on your own schedule. Justo says, did you consider making the box hex-shaped? We didn't consider that, but that would have been a fun idea. I think box construction with unique shapes is a lot more complex and expensive, and I wanted to keep the price very low and reasonable for this game. Nathan's turning 30 this Friday. He says, so I'll be having 30 by Bo Burnham playing on repeat for the near future. Oh, that's. I hope you have a happier 30th birthday than Bo Burnham did in his Netflix special. But if not, that's okay too. It's okay for you to have a sad 30th birthday. Whatever you're feeling is true to you. But either way, I do hope you have a happy birthday, Nathan. What else is going on here? I have a little sticky note of stuff. I did a video about games with ramping complexity this past week. Ramping complexity specifically from game to game, with the classic, new classic example being The Crew, where you start out with a very simple game in The Crew, and then the next game, game two, is a little harder, more complex, more things to think about, and then so on through 50 missions in The Crew, which I think is really impressive. But that was a fun video. That ramping complexity has been a huge thing on my mind as I've been working on my open world cooperative game. And the Crew has been actually an inspiration for that, even though my game is nothing like The Crew, not even a semblance of it. But it was it's been on my mind a lot lately. So if that's interesting to you, there's a video about ramping complexity on my YouTube channel from this past week. I did blog posts this past week about last week was about collector's editions, examining the thought process behind the collector's edition for Red Rising, like having a collector's edition and having a standard edition, which I know is fairly normal on Kickstarter, but it's not as normal off of Kickstarter. And so I wanted to talk about why we did that, what went right, what didn't go right, what will we do when we might do that again in the future, because it's not every time, but there's sometimes where it's possible for us to do or makes sense for us to do. And then I did a blog post on Monday inspired by IV Games. They have a YouTube series where they examine different Kickstarter campaigns. And one of the things that Austin over there talked about was the concept of laurels. So a campaign showing you essentially what the company is all about in relation to that specific game. With the example that I used, and that Austin used, was on, I think it was on Legend Academy. Was that right? No. It was on Divinus. Yeah, it was on Divinus on GameFound, where they had a nice graphic showing, hey, our thing is digital hybrid games. Here are two games that we've made recently. One was Chronicles of Crime, and the other was Destinies. And these are how these games are received, and this style of game is what we're good at, and hence Divinus is the game that we're funding now. That's what the folks at Lucky Duck Games were saying through that graphic. And I never thought about the concept of laurels for Kickstarter pages or GameFound pages, but I really like the way that Austin said it, so I did a blog post about that on Monday. Also, a little behind the scenes thing, I got Wave 1 blind playtesting feedback for a product that we've been working on for a while. I got that yesterday and spent a lot of brain space yesterday reading all this feedback, learning what blind playtesters were saying about the game. Wonderful feedback from these playtesters, and trying to figure out what's important in changing the next version of the game. So that's what I'm working on right now behind the scenes at Stonemaier Games. Let's see. Dusty says, I have a preview copy of Rolling Realms, and Jamie showed off the face with numeral 3 on them, and my copy looked different from each other. Oh, so he's talking about how the dice look different. And you can even see it on these two dice, how these are both dice, but the marbling looks different on them because it's the marbling process itself is random. You inject like the same amount of each color, but then you mix it together and you come out with these dice with different marbling. Jacques says, business question. Now that you have a staff, yeah, so it's me and 2 other full-time employees, Alex and Joe, and plus part-time employees in Alan and Morton. I'd be curious to know what your leadership principles and practices are. In other words, what in your eyes makes a good leader? What do you aspire to? That's a big question, Jacques. I have some blog posts about that. If you look on the Stonemaier Games blog for leadership, search that word, you'll see some stuff. But let me give you maybe one answer. I would say, compassion is really important to me when I think about Joe and Alex and Alan and Morton. I try to lead them with compassion, and also I like to lead via trust and autonomy. I hire them because I thought they do a good job, and I trust them to do a really good job, and so I give them a lot of autonomy to do what they were hired to do, and I think that's. Yeah, those are some aspects. I don't know if that makes me a good leader in any means. There are many ways that I'm not a good leader. I think that I'm still learning to be a better leader. But I think compassion, trust, and autonomy are definitely up there for me. They're priorities for me when I think about the people that I work with. I don't think of them as people that work for me. I think of them as coworkers, people that I work with every day. Yeah. Chris says, speaking of rolling right games, have you seen that Lots has a new version called Lots Filled In that's on Kickstarter now? Looks fun. Colored pencils. Have you backed it? I haven't backed that. No, I did back the original Lots, but I haven't backed this one. Gerald says, what do I like about Seven Wonders Duel Agora? I haven't tried it. I did play it once. It was a few months ago, and I like that it added some kind of a majority control element of the Senate, which I thought was cool. And there were also some new cards added to the game. I don't know if it's really necessary to have a fun experience with Seven Wonders to play with Agora, but I think it's worth checking out on Board Game Arena at least to see if it's up your alley. Yeah. Chad says, does Red Rising get a realm in the final Rolling Realms? That I will talk about soon. I'll talk about exactly which realms ended up in the final version of the game. How many realms are in this box? You'll find out that soon. Yeah. Steven says, what have I backed that is getting close to fulfillment that you are excited about? Oh, I never know what's coming soon. I end up unsubscribing to the project updates after a while. What did I get recently? Yeah, I don't even know. I know I still have to play Herbaceous. I have the little pocket Herbaceous. I need to play that for the first time. And I recently bought My City, which is not a Kickstarter campaign, but I'm excited to play My City. Yeah. Arthur says, what are some of the recent games that you backed on Kickstarter and Game Found? The main one that has been on my mind is Earthborn Rangers, which is on Kickstarter now. I love what Andrew Navarro and team are doing with that. I also backed AbCon, the African Board Game Convention, Death Roads All-Stars, Soul Raiders, and Tranquility the Ascent. Those are my most recent ones. On GameFound, I think I pledged a small amount to Divinus in case I decide to actually get the game, but I haven't backed the full game yet. And I really want to back Iridia, but like I said earlier, $165 is more than I've ever spent on a Kickstarter game, maybe even almost double what I've spent on a Kickstarter game. So I need some more self-convincing before I back Iridia, as beautiful and amazing as it looks. Ilya says, have I seen Cartouche on Kickstarter? He says, it launched yesterday. It's a tile placement and drafting game around the theme of restoring the stories of the first female pharaoh. It's a gorgeous game. Thank you for recommending it. I did see it briefly. I got the notification from, what is it, Bluebeard Games, and I checked it out, and I probably need to look at it more in detail. I just gave it a quick look, but I haven't backed it yet. But I trust your recommendation, and so I will go check it out. Steve says, will downloadable or printable sheets be available for Rolling Realms? These are better for remote play than the whiteboards. Looks like we may be headed for more remote play. I might actually disagree with you a little bit there, Steve, but feel free to push back and say why you said that. But I actually think we designed Rolling Realms really well for remote play. Everyone needs a copy to actually play remotely, which is part of, I think, is what is necessary for us to have a sustainable product. We need people to actually buy it. But if anyone has a copy of the game, or even if you have people, and you'll see there's actually one reviewer, advanced copy reviewer, that's going to talk about this. But if you buy a copy of the game and you know you're never going to play locally with more than like 4 players, you can actually mail some of the realms to other people that you intend to play with remotely, and they can play with it there. The game won't be available for print. We don't do print-to-play versions of the final versions of our games because we put a lot of time and energy and resources in these games. We want people to buy them. That's the sustainable approach for us. But I think we've made a game that you can either buy multiple copies of. Like you can buy a copy, you can have your friend buy a copy, or like I said, you can buy a copy and share the realm cards with other people around the world. I think we've designed the realm cards for remote play, and I actually think if you're going to put things on camera, I think using the cards plus the dry erase markers is a much easier way to show people what you're working on. If you care to show that, all you really need on camera are the dice. But that's an easier way to show it than pencil and pen and paper. Yeah. But feel free to push back on that. If you disagree with that, let me know what you're thinking, because we definitely want this game to be remote play friendly. I think not that we want it to be. The game is already made. The game's already produced. It's being shipped right now to fulfillment centers. But that is our hope for the game. Yeah. Christoph says, about Wingspan, how many expansions do you plan to do in total? And he says, is the original one considered as the America continent or North America only? So the original out-of-the-box Wingspan is North America, and then we so far have Europe and Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, surrounding areas, and then there are 4 continents remaining. So we hope to do one expansion for each of the remaining continents. So that will be Latin America, Antarctica, Africa, and Asia in no particular order there. He says about Red Rising, is there a full AI iPad or iPhone version planned? So a full AI digital version is the question. And yes, we have a developer who is starting to work on it, which means that it'll probably be ready late next year at best. Yeah, these nice digital games take a while to make. Ryan is looking forward to Geekway. He says, last year was supposed to be my first year, but obviously that didn't pan out. How do you think the 3-day middle of the week format is going to work? I think it will feel smaller than a regular Geekway, but I think it'll feel safer as a result. And I think they're really pushing, as I'm glad they are, that people look out for both their own health and the health and safety of those around them by either being vaccinated, or if they're not vaccinated, that they have to wear a mask at all times. I'm vaccinated. I'll probably still wear a mask most of the time when I'm playing games at Geekway. But middle of the week, I think, is an odd time for a lot of people. And I know that's tough for a lot of people, but I also know that people probably haven't taken as much vacation time and travel time over the course of this year. So maybe people have some holiday time built up and they're able to make that happen. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that that people can take this Delta variant seriously and get it under control before we enter that convention, just for the safety of everyone. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Just trying to look out for my fellow human beings and their safety. Tom says, oh, Tom has a spoiler question. I don't answer spoiler questions, Tom, especially not about code names, but I appreciate your curiosity. John says, the artwork seems to go along with the old school D&D. Is that done on purpose? No, not done on purpose. Yeah, Miles created this art because one of the things about Rolling Realms is that each of the realms is inspired by a different Stonemaier game, and I think Miles just thought this aesthetic worked well for the game. There's little Easter eggs about all of our games in the art here on Rolling Realms. I don't know if Miles is watching right now, but Miles can comment on that if he was inspired by old school D&D at all. Tim is talking about Shards of Infinity, one of my favorite games. He says he played the new Shards of Infinity expansion. He says it added a bit of a twist to a great game. He says, I mentioned a possible bigger box to store all the content to Stoneblade. They say they consider it in the future. That's nice. Cameron says, what is my favorite game that you don't own? You know, I recently did my top 10 list. Let me look at my top 10 list of all time will go live in a few weeks. Let's see what the top game is that I don't actually own. I don't own the Quacks of Quedlinburg. And Ra. Ra is on there too. The Quacks of Quedlinburg and Ra are 2 games high up on that list that I do not own. And I'm okay with that. I have easy access to both of those games. A friend has a copy of Quacks that is fully decked out. And so whenever I see that friend, I think of Quacks, and we often play Quacks. And Ra, kind of the same thing with another friend. Yeah. I'm okay not owning all my favorite games. I don't know how you all feel about that. Do you feel like you need to own like your top 5, top 10 games, or just have easy access to those games? Tim says, will you be adding future realms in an expansion pack? I wonder if those will fit in the box. Great question. I would put that in the spoiler category, so I'm not going to answer that yet, but such topics I will be discussing in Design Diary posts in the future. Yeah. Let me make a note about that to make sure I do talk about that. Yeah. Arthur says, what do you think about Kickstarters that already launch with plenty of expansions? Should they be bundled in the core game or just launch later on when the core game has already been launched and thoroughly tested? So here's my take on that. I like the use of a single expansion to hold all stretch goals. So I like the idea of a company saying, here is a complete game. We love this game. This is designed. This is like the out-of-the-box experience that we want. And we feel that so strongly that we are offering it from day one. And this is the game that we'll be offering via retail in the future if we have a retail life for this game. And then for any stretch goals we add, we are putting them in an expansion box. So this will be a separate thing that backers will get for free and that we will sell separately in the future as we decide to do, whenever we decide to do that. So defining the scope of the expansion based on the stretch goals, I think is my preferred method. That's, if I ever return to Kickstarter, that's exactly how I would do it. Because I think that's a way to offer something complete from day one, but also offer something special and tangible to backers for free. I mean, it may not even necessarily be considered an expansion, but it is, a compilation of stuff in a box, and you're calling it an expansion for that reason. That is my preferred approach to expansions on crowdfunding. Yeah. Chris says, Geekway has some great games on their play and win list this year. Yeah, we contributed. Hopefully they've listed the games that we mentioned. But yeah, I'm excited about their play and win. He says, is there a particular game on that list that you're looking forward to playing? What am I looking forward to playing? I haven't actually looked over the list yet. I'm sure there is. I would have put Nemesis and Dwelling Developer Veil on that list because those are games that I've been wanting to try but haven't really wanted to buy sight unseen. And but now I've gotten to play them. I'm still happy to play them at Geekway too. But no, I need to check out that list, Chris. What are you excited about? What game on the play and win list at Geekway are you really excited about? For those of you who don't know, also play and win, and actually we're hoping to get Rolling Realms there too. If it arrives in time, we will get Rolling Realms on the shelves at Geekway for people to play and try out. Play and win basically is when you go to a convention, they have a special section of games that they have purchased or gotten donated from publishers that you can check out from that special library, play it, and then enter your name and the names of all players who played that session associated with that game itself. And then at the end of the convention, they draw names, and you might win one of the games that you played. So it gives people a reason to play a bunch of different games, try a bunch of different games. It gives publishers a nice benefit because they're getting people exposed to a lot of games that they aren't necessarily going to win. They might win one, someone's going to win one, but other people might find they really love the game because they tried it and they might go buy the game. And it's fun for the convention too because they have people showing up eagerly to play cool stuff that maybe they don't otherwise have access to, and it gives them a reason to really actively play a lot of the play and win games. It is a very heavily used method. It was started by Geekway, and I think it's actually more effective than game libraries. I always see way more people doing play and wins than checking out games from the game libraries. So yeah, I love that method at conventions of using play and win systems. John has an interesting question. He says, with regard, and this is a question that we kind of ask on our annual demographic survey to people to see what people think. He says, with regards to the $165 pricing of Iridia on Kickstarter, what price range would be an instant buy for you? And I think it really depends on the game. Yeah, it really depends on the game and the weight of the game. So it comes down to value, really. If I look at a game on Kickstarter or a game in general, any game in general, and I feel like I'm getting a great value out of the money that I'm spending on it, whether it's replayability, whether it's production quality, whether it's the mechanisms, all those things go into how I perceive value, how we perceive value differently. But if the price matches that or is even less than what I think that value is, then I'm likely to buy it. So it really depends on the game. Yeah, it really depends on the game. Vincent says, I am the author of the game Waltz of the Mass. Well, congratulations on being the designer of that game, Vincent. He says, I would like to know your opinion on my game. How can I do it? I am not a reviewer. I appreciate you asking about that. I'm not a reviewer of games. I'm a designer and a publisher, and my focus is on Stonemaier games, and so I don't review games. I don't play test games from other publishers. I wish I could play from other designers. I wish I could, but my 60 to 70 hour focus is on my company. But congratulations on making a game, and I hope if you're looking to get like review style opinions, there are many reviewers out there that you can send your game to get their opinions, if that's what you're looking for. Let's see, just looking for, I think, I've covered a lot of topics today about our e-newsletter, about some Kickstarter stuff, about Rolling Realms, a lot of stuff about Rolling Realms today. I have a few more minutes here. I'll use it to answer questions as fast as I can because I think I'm behind a little bit here. Steve was the one that questioned like if Rolling Realms will work remotely. He says, we'll still play Rolling Realms remotely and send out the Realm cards. You said boards, they're cards or big cards. He said 4 of us played My City that way using Zoom, and it worked great. Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to do it. But I think that one key to remember about Rolling Realms is that you really don't need to see what other players are doing. It's nice if they have cameras. It's nice if maybe at the end of the game they hold up their realms to show what they were doing. But all you need to do is have one player be able to see the dice, and that way it really is very easy to play online. Because only one player needs to show the dice on camera. They can even say the dice out loud. You don't even need to have a live video going. Yeah. Karen asked if I played Merchant's Cove, and I've not played it yet, but I admire the highly asymmetric gameplay in that game, the things that I've read about it. Yeah, I haven't played it. Karen asked, does it improve the game or hinder it in your opinion? And I don't know. I haven't played it. I have watched some videos about that where reviewers have different perspectives on whether or not they like the core game enough itself to also enjoy the mini games. But I think it's ambitious. I like that they design these little mini games for each player to feel like they're doing their own thing that still syncs well with the common shared environment of the game. So it looks cool, but I haven't played it. Maybe that's one to play at Geekway. Kirk says that he's been loving Wingspan and even bought a second copy to play at his parents' house. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing it with your family. I appreciate that. He says, is there any chance you will produce a mini expansion of just the expansion end of round goal tiles? He says, I would love to add these to the base game without necessarily purchasing the expansions. I appreciate you asking, but no, we don't sell gameplay content a la carte. That is just with our, I mean, the scale at which we're fulfilling games and selling and fulfilling products around the world, it just does not work for us to sell components like that, and really not sustainable for us as a publisher to do that. So hopefully, though, we price our expansions in a fair way for everyone to be able to afford. I really do keep affordability and value, like I talked about a second ago, in mind when we price expansions and our games. Yeah. Christoph says, will you wait for the release of all... I will read this out loud. I don't know if it's a spoiler question yet, but I'll read it out loud. We'll see. Will you wait for the release of all Wingspan expansions before releasing the Wingspan Big Box? He says, how do you do that? How do you work on the big box without knowing the content of all the expansions? That's a great question. We don't know exactly. But we know some things. We know there will be a lot of cards, and so we can plan around that. We know that it needs to be somewhat modular to make room for third-party inserts if people want to use them or already have them, but also be modular for stuff that we don't know about in the future. It needs to be deep enough to hold a big rule book at some point. So we know, we have a rough idea of what will come. And the point of it is, the reason that we're doing it now is that already everything for Wingspan does not fit into one box. And so we need to find a solution much sooner than 5 years in the future when everything has been produced. And so while we can't guarantee absolutely that everything of all time that we ever make for Wingspan will fit in the big box, we are planning around that contingency, that possibility, those possibilities as best we can with all the knowledge that we have now and with enough modularity that I think we can work in the future. So that is what we're doing with the Wingspan nesting box. It is tough. You're right. We could wait 5 years down the road and design the 100% perfect nesting box, but I think we're going to get pretty close to 98, 99% by doing it now. And I think the need is now, not 5 years down the road. Let's see, a few more questions, and then I will head out for the day. I really appreciate everyone joining today. It's wonderful to talk to you. Even though I can't see you, it is wonderful to see your comments and see your names in the comments here. Chad says, if I'm having a board game party, which 3 Avengers do you invite? Definitely Iron Man, because Iron Man's been my favorite for a long time. I love the recent Black Widow movie, so I would invite Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, not Scarlett Johansson. I would invite Black Widow. So Black Widow, Iron Man, and I don't know, I think Ant-Man's fun to be around. He has a fun sense of humor, and he could make himself really small and pick up little pieces around the board. So yeah, I'll go with those 3, just off the cuff. I'm sure I would have a better answer if I thought about it. That's a fun question. Dusty says, I love Tim's question about future realms and the expansion pack for Rolling Realms. Part of me wonders if including one realm card in the box of a new release would drive sales over Rolling Realms. I definitely don't have the business acumen of you, Jamie. Is this a bad idea? Dusty, I will say that we have a plan for what we're going to do for future games in the Rolling Realms world. We have a plan for that. But I will talk about that in the design diary. I don't want to talk about the future yet. Today, I just want to focus on what the core game is all about. Yeah. Jerry says, will Stonemaier be at Origins this year? No, we will not be at Origins this year, but I hope you have fun if you end up going to Origins. Safe fun, of course. Dusty recommend not inviting Bruce Banner / the Hulk to game night. John also points out that at Play and Win, you can get a bunch of great data from Play and Win based on who's played which games, how they rate those games. I love when conventions actually collect that data and share it with publishers. It's really, really helpful to see that. It's a nice service, especially if we've donated those games to the conventions. Patrick says, would you ever consider doing a licensed property game? And yes, we did. It's Red Rising, and also technically Scythe, but the bigger one that we did was Red Rising. I think it's very, very rare that we would do it again in the future because there are very few properties that I think fit the niche that we were looking for in the same way that Red Rising did. But yeah, we have one, Red Rising. Hilda was able to play Viticulture. She says, we loved it and of course opened a bottle or 2 as we played. That's a tough way to learn Viticulture, play it with a bottle of wine, but I'm glad you still had fun with your first play. Marty says, are you a big football soccer fan? If so, can I send you my game? I appreciate you asking that, Marty. I don't accept games in that way, but I love that you've created a soccer or a football themed game, and I do love soccer. I played soccer all of my life. Hasn't not as much in recent years, but for most of my life I played soccer, and I follow Champions League, EPL, the U.S. Women's National Team, and and the World Cup and the Euros and things like that. So I love soccer as a sport. It's not something I'm looking for in a tabletop game because I love just watching it and playing the actual sport. But I'm glad that you created a game. Hopefully you're happy with what you created. Let's see. Scrolling down for a few last comments. Yeah, looks looks like we had a few funny comments about the Avengers. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining me for today's live cast. I always love doing these big e-newsletter live casts. You have some great questions today. You have some great comments. And I will post this on YouTube. So in case you have any questions after this, YouTube is the way to post them because I will actually get notifications for that. I hope you have a great Wednesday. Stay tuned in the Rolling Realms Facebook group and on our website for more information about this game as I unravel it. And I will see you next Wednesday. Take care. Bye.